Hey folks, here's a review answer key for the old concepts thing that you're going to have a little quiz on. Um, I did the top part because I don't think it needs a lot of explanation. I mean, just, I guess, a bracket, remembering that's a closed circle, and since it goes to infinity over here, you write curly braces x such that, remember a colon is for such that, and then x is greater than or equal to 4. Kind of the same deal here. I don't think there's anything crazy. Yeah. So then we get down to the next part, which will be distance and midpoint. Kind of the same deal here. Nothing too difficult. Distance formula is a big old square root, and it's the difference in the x's squared, so -4 minus 0 squared, plus the difference in the y's squared, and then a big old square root. So sometimes they come out nicely, sometimes they don't. -4 squared is still 16, and this one's 2 squared, which is 4. So you get radical 20. For those of you who remember how to do the jailbreak thing, you'll break that down to 2 radical 5. You should still remember all that old stuff. If you needed it as a decimal, like if you were putting that point on a graph, if you needed a distance of something, you needed to know how long it was, just type it in a calculator, square root of 20, and get an approximation. As far as midpoint goes, midpoint is really just the average point. So here it's a number, it's a distance. This one's actually going to be a point. It'll have a comma between them. The x part you find by averaging the two x's. So average -4 and 0. You don't need a calculator to tell you that's -2. I hope you don't need a calculator for that. And you average a 3 and a 1 and you get 2. If you needed a calculator, just add them up and divide by 2. All right, so then we go to the back. This is when it gets a little more interesting. Finding the X and Y intercepts. If you remember from class, plug in 0 for Y for an X intercept. You plug in 0 for X for a Y intercept. So here, if I plug in a 0 for Y, kind of made your life easy here. I should have made you factor it yourself. So here, the only way this equals 0 is if x minus 1 equals 0 or x minus 3 equals 0. It's kind of like when you were solving factoring problems back in the day. So x is either positive 1 or positive 3. Those are your two x-intercepts. So those are x-intercepts. Then your y-intercepts are always easier than that. I like to label my work so you can tell what I'm doing. Y-intercepts, you take that same equation and you plug in 0 for y, or sorry, 0 for x, and it comes down to be -1 times -3, which is regular 3. So that is your y-intercept. Okay, same deal here. If you plugged in 0 for y to get your x-intercepts, x cubed minus 4x. So for this one, you're going to have, you got to factor it, I guess. That's the only good way to do it. X squared minus 4. This one I made you do a little extra work for, just to see if you remember the difference of two squares. So here you have 3 answers for x-intercept. This guy turns into a 0. This guy's a -2. This guy's a +2. So there's 3 x-intercepts. And then for y-intercept, it's always easier. Y-intercept, you're going to take 0 in for x. So 0 cubed minus 4 times 0, which is 0. So just remember, these are points. This is actually the point 0, 0. And this is the point -2, 0. And this is the point 2, 0. And then this is the point, well, 0, 0. But just remember, you're actually finding points. You're not finding just one value. Down here, find the equation of a line with a slope and an intercept. Holy cow, that one's easy, right? -2/3 x plus 6, y equals mx plus b. This one I'm going to use my point slope formula. And if you've forgotten, there it is. And I'm going to do y minus 2 equals 1/4 times 4, times x minus 4. Snuck that in there. And then that 1/4 distributes, so you'll have y minus 2 equals 1/4 x minus 1, because a fourth times 4 is 1. The minus sign's still there. I kind of did that on purpose. You add 2 to both sides, and you'll have y equals 1/4 x plus 1. Okay. And then last but not least, you have this problem where you got to find your slope first. So you'll do, make sure when you do your slope, you do the y's over the x's. So on here, I'm going to go, I don't know, I'll start over here. -3 minus 2, that's y minus y, over x minus x. And since I started with this y, I got to start with this x. Otherwise, the world explodes. And here's another thing. Be careful when you subtract a negative that you remember it's a plus. Okay, so you're going to get -5 over regular 6. There's my slope. Now that's not the equation of a line, because then you got to do what you did here. When you had a slope and a point, now you got a slope and 2 points. To me, it doesn't matter which one you use. I usually pick the one that has less negatives. That's not true, but I mean there is none with less negatives, but I'll pick the one with smaller numbers. So my equation is going to be y minus the y part, which is 3, so it'll be y plus 3, equals m times x minus the x part, which is 1. Now you can, the directions didn't say leave it in slope-intercept form, so I could leave it like this, or I could distribute the 5, 6 and get y by itself like I did up here. So that's a quick recap. Those are old skills that come up in calculus, and we want to remember how to do that. So this is my coffee. Good stuff. All right, folks, I'll talk to you later. Do some good studying. Adios.